Ji-hoon Park stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. Nexus Prime was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The station looked like a giant crystal floating in space, with lights dancing through its clear walls. This was where the Galactic Council met, where 12 alien races decided the fate of entire worlds. "First time seeing it?" asked So-young Kim, joining him at the window. She was the team's expert on alien life, and her hands shook slightly as she spoke. They were all nervous. "Yes," Ji-hoon replied. "Hard to believe we're really here." Dong-yuk Lee, their military advisor, checked his uniform one more time. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. 4 billion people are counting on us." The transport ship docked with a soft thud. Ji-hoon took a deep breath and led his team through the airlock. The moment they stepped inside Nexus Prime, they knew they were in a different world. The air felt thick and smelled like flowers mixed with metal. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors, clicks, hums, and noises no human throat could make. A tall, blue-skinned alien greeted them. Its eyes were too large and too bright, like looking into twin suns. "Welcome, humans. I am guide vessel for your stay. Follow." They walked through hallways that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Other aliens passed by, paying them no attention. Some floated instead of walking, others had too many arms or legs or moved like liquid. Ji-hoon tried not to stare, but everything was so different from Earth. "The council chamber is ahead," the guide said in a voice that sounded like music. "Your species will present their request now." The chamber was enormous. 12 raised platforms surrounded a central stage, each holding representatives of the council races. Ji-hoon had studied them all, but seeing them in person was different. The Altarians looked like golden statues that moved. The Vegans were tall and thin like walking trees. The Zephyrians seemed to be made of shifting mist and light. High Chancellor Mordain of the Altarians spoke first. His voice boomed through the chamber. "Humans of Earth, you have requested membership in our council. Present your case." Ji-hoon stepped forward. His speech was prepared, practiced 100 times. "Honored council members, humanity comes before. You in peace. We seek to join the galactic community and share our knowledge and friendship with all species." He spoke about Earth's achievements, their art and science, their desire to explore and learn. So-young presented examples of human creativity and problem-solving. Dong-yuk showed their defensive capabilities, making it clear they could protect themselves, but wanted peace. The presentation took an hour. When they finished, silence filled the chamber. Then the whispers started. Alien languages mixed together in a sound like wind through leaves. The Vegan representative spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "We have reviewed your species' history. You have had over 300 wars in your recorded past. Your technology is primitive," added a Zephyrian, its voice floating like smoke. "You still burn fossil fuels on much of your planet." Chancellor Mordain's golden form seemed to glow brighter. "Your species shows dangerous tendencies. Violence seems to be your first response to problems." Ji-hoon felt his heart sink, but he tried to stay calm. "Respected council, yes. We have had conflicts. But we have also learned from them. We are growing, changing, becoming better." "Better?" The Altarian laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "You cannot even unite your own planet. Different nations still fight over resources and land." A new voice joined the discussion. It came from a race Ji-hoon barely recognized, the Korthans, who rarely spoke in council meetings. "Perhaps they need time to develop?" But Chancellor Mordain raised a golden hand for silence. "The council has decided. Humanity is denied membership. Your species is too violent, too primitive, and too chaotic to join civilized society." The words hit Ji-hoon like a physical blow. Around him, So-young gasped, and Dong-yuk's face turned red with anger. "Furthermore," the Chancellor continued, "humanity will remain within your solar system. Any attempt to expand beyond will be met with corrective action." "You're keeping us prisoners in our own system?" Dong-hyuk stepped forward, his military training taking over. "You are being protected," said the Vegan, "and the galaxy is being protected from you," a Zephyrian added with what sounded like amusement. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have learned to behave like civilized beings, you may request membership again. Barbaric apes playing with fire, another voice called out, followed by sounds that might have been alien laughter. Jihoon felt the weight of failure crushing him. 4 billion humans had hoped for this day, dreamed of joining the stars. Now those dreams were being crushed by beings who saw humanity as nothing more than dangerous children. "The audience is over," Chancellor Mordain announced. "You will return to your system immediately." Back on Earth, President Miran Choi received the news in her office. The quantum communication device delivered Jihoon's report in real time. Around her, the celebration that had been planned for humanity's acceptance turned to shocked silence. "They said what?" Miran asked, not believing what she heard. "Denied," Jihoon's voice crackled through space. "Not just denied, Madam President. They've forbidden us from leaving our solar system." Miran looked around the room at her advisors. Every face showed the same expression: shock, hurt, and growing anger. "Thank you, Ambassador Park. Return home safely." She turned off the communication and stood at her window, looking out at the capital city below. Millions of people had gathered in public squares, waiting for news. Soon they would know that Earth's children were considered too dangerous for the galaxy. In a small workshop on Luna Base, Taehyung Yoon had been watching the proceedings on a public feed. As an engineer, he had dreamed of seeing alien technology, of learning how they built ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. Now, as he listened to the aliens dismiss human achievement as primitive, something changed in his mind. He pulled out a drawing pad and began sketching. His first design was for a new kind of engine, one that used principles the aliens had never seen. His second was for a ship that could disappear from their sensors. "Primitive," he muttered to himself as he drew. "We'll see who's primitive." On Nexus Prime, the council meeting continued after the humans left. The representatives discussed trade agreements and territorial disputes, already forgetting about the small blue world they had just rejected. They did not notice that one of their communication systems had a small device attached to it. During the presentation, while all eyes were on the humans, no one saw So-Young Kim place the tiny recorder. It was designed to look like a piece of debris, unnoticed and ignored. But it would listen, and it would remember everything the council said when they thought no humans could hear them. The rejection was complete. Earth was alone, cut off from the galaxy by beings who saw them as unworthy. But in workshops and laboratories across the planet, humans were already beginning to work. They had been judged and found wanting. That judgment would prove to be the Council's greatest mistake. The galaxy had no idea what it had just awakened. 6 months had passed since the rejection, and Earth looked very different now. Where once there had been celebration preparations, now there were construction sites. Where once there had been hope for peaceful contact, now there was determined silence. Nayeon Oh worked 18 hours a day in her laboratory deep beneath Geneva. The quantum physics facility had been expanded 3 times since the Council's rejection, and now it hummed with activity around the clock. Her team of scientists came from every nation on Earth, united by a single goal. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, she would later write in her personal journal. "We discovered that the aliens' communication system has a fundamental flaw. They assume all species think the same way they do." Her assistant, Kyu-Hyun Park, looked up from his calculations. "The test worked. We can send messages instantly across any distance, and their systems can't detect or intercept them." Nayeon smiled for the first time in months. "Good. Now we have something they don't expect. Private conversations." Across the city, Woojin Nam stood in a facility that officially didn't exist. The underground complex stretched for miles, filled with workshops where Earth's best minds worked on projects that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The rejection had done something unexpected to humanity. It had united them. "Show me the new designs," Woojin said to his team leader. The holographic display showed weapons and defenses that looked nothing like anything Earth had built before. They were sleek, efficient, and deadly. More importantly, they used principles that the Council's technology couldn't counter. "We learned from studying their old broadcasts," the team leader explained. "They've been using the same basic technology for thousands of years. They've become lazy, predictable." "And we're not," Wu Jin said with satisfaction. In a small apartment, in Seoul, Hyejin Lim typed carefully on her computer. She had been the human translator during the council presentation, but what the aliens didn't know was that she understood far more than just their words. She had learned their body language, their cultural signals, their weaknesses. The council species are not equal partners, she wrote in her report. The Altarians, Vegans, and Zephyrians control everything. The other 9 species are essentially slaves, though they don't call it that. Her report detailed how the council really worked. Behind the pretty words about civilization and cooperation was a simple truth. 3 races ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, and everyone else obeyed, or died. They keep the other species dependent on them for technology. Hyejin continued. Food, medicine, even basic tools, everything comes from the ruling 3. It's not a council, it's an empire. This information was quickly sent to Jiwon Kang, who was working in the largest shipyard humanity had ever built. Hidden on the far side of the moon, the facility was invisible to Earth-based telescopes and shielded from detection by alien sensors. Jiwon studied the alien ship designs that Earth's hidden observation posts had recorded. Look at this, she said to her engineering team. Their ships are huge, slow, and built to intimidate. They don't expect to fight anyone who can fight back. Her new ship designs were the opposite of everything the aliens built. Small, fast, and nearly invisible, they could strike before the enemy knew they were there and disappear before anyone could respond. We're not building a navy, Jiwon explained to her workers. We're building a pack of wolves. President Miran. Choi had quietly stepped down after the rejection, claiming she needed to spend time with family. Her replacement was someone the aliens had never heard of, Seokmin Han, a former intelligence officer who understood that sometimes the best way to win was to make your enemy think they had already won. Seokmin's first official act was to publicly announce that Earth would comply with the Council's restrictions. Humanity would remain in their solar system and focus on internal development. The announcement was broadcast across the galaxy, and the Council members congratulated themselves on successfully containing the dangerous humans. What they didn't know was that Seokmin had also given secret orders to teams already leaving the solar system in ships too small and quiet for alien sensors to detect. Captain Yuna Song commanded the first of these secret missions. Her ship, barely larger than an old Earth fighter jet, slipped past the edge of the solar system, while alien monitoring stations detected nothing. Her destination was a worthless star system that the Council had never bothered to explore. Initiating landing sequence on planet designation Terra 2, Yuna reported through the new quantum communication system. No alien presence detected. Within weeks, small human bases began appearing in dozens of worthless systems. The aliens ignored asteroid belts, considered gas giant moons uninhabitable, and never bothered to explore systems without obvious resources. Humans who had learned to survive in Earth's harshest environments found these places perfectly suitable. Each base was small, hidden, and self-sufficient. More importantly, each base began producing things the galaxy had never seen before. In the Kepler 4R42 system, miners led by Daeyeon Moon discovered that the methods needed to extract resources from impossible locations produced materials stronger than anything the Council used. Their new alloys could withstand weapons that would vaporize alien ships. It's like they never learned to work hard for anything, Daeyeon explained to her team. Everything came easy to them for so long that they forgot how to innovate. Back on Earth, Taehyung Yoon had become something of a legend among human engineers. His workshop was now a massive complex where he and thousands of other designers created technologies that seemed to break the laws of physics. The aliens think in straight lines, Taehyung told his students. They see a problem and apply more power until it goes away. Humans think in spirals. We find ways around problems, through them, under them. His latest creation was an engine that could make a ship disappear not just from sensors, but from normal space entirely. They can't hit what isn't there, he said with a grin. The changes weren't just technological. Earth's entire society was transforming. Children learned alien languages alongside their native tongues. Universities offered courses in xenocultural studies and interstellar warfare. Every human understood that they were no longer just citizens of Earth. They were representatives of their species in a hostile galaxy. The most important change was in humanity's attitude. The rejection had hurt, but it had also revealed something. crucial. The aliens didn't see humans as potential equals. They saw them as threats to be contained. They were right to be afraid, wrote Jahoon Park in his private journal. He had returned to Earth as a failed ambassador, but was now something much more important, a symbol of humanity's determination. They just didn't realize that rejecting us wouldn't make us go away. It would make us stronger. The first test of this new strength came when an alien patrol ship detected unusual activity in the outer solar system. The Zephyrian captain decided to investigate, thinking it might be some primitive human probe that had wandered too far from home. What the captain found was a human ship unlike anything in their databases. Sleek, silent, and impossibly fast. It seemed to dance around their sensors. When the alien ship tried to give chase, the human vessel simply vanished. "Report," the captain demanded from his crew. "Ship has disappeared from all sensors," came the reply. "No energy signature, no gravitational disturbance. It's like it was never there." Impossible. Continue scanning. But the human ship was already gone, carrying recordings of the alien patrol patterns and communication frequencies back to Earth. The hunter had become the hunted, and the aliens didn't even know it yet. In his secret headquarters, Seokmin Han studied the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Human bases were established, new technologies were being developed, and most importantly, humanity was learning exactly how the Council really worked. "Phase 1 is complete," he announced to his inner circle. "We are no longer trapped in our solar system. Phase 2 begins now." "What's Phase 2?" asked his military advisor. Seokmin smiled, and for the first time since the rejection, it was a smile without sadness or anger. It was the smile of a predator who had finished studying his prey. "Phase 2 is when we start making friends." 2 years after Earth's rejection, the galaxy looked the same on the surface. Council ships patrolled their territories, alien worlds continued their daily routines, and the three ruling species maintained their iron grip on power. But in the shadows, something new was growing. Yuna Song had become a ghost. Her official records listed her as dead, killed in a training accident 6 months ago. In reality, she was the most successful spy humanity had ever produced. She could change her appearance to blend in with a dozen different alien species, and her modified vocal cords could produce sounds no human throat was meant to make. She walked through the market district of Proxima Station, a major trading hub controlled by the Vegans. To anyone watching, she looked like a young Nexari trader, one of the smaller species that served as merchants throughout the galaxy. Her skin had been surgically altered to match their pale blue color, and genetic modifications made her eyes glow with the same silver light. But what she saw in the market made her sick to her stomach. Korthans, a proud warrior species, were loading cargo like beasts of burden. Their natural strength made them perfect slaves, and the collar devices around their necks would deliver agonizing pain if they moved too slowly. None of the other aliens paid attention to their suffering. "Excuse me," Yuna said to a Nexari merchant in their clicking language. "Those Korthans, are they prisoners?" The merchant looked confused by the question. "Prisoners? No, they are workers. The Council provides them with purpose and shelter in exchange for labor." "And the collars?" "Training devices, helps them learn efficiency." The merchant spoke as if this was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Yuna bought some fruit she didn't need and continued walking. In a quiet alley, she activated her hidden communication device and sent a coded message back to Earth. The message was simple. "It's worse than we thought." On the other side of the galaxy, Daeun Moon was having her own discoveries. Her mining operation in the Void Nebula had grown from a small hidden base to a major industrial complex. The nebula's dense radiation clouds made it impossible for Council sensors to penetrate, which meant humans could work there without fear of discovery. But 3 days ago, her teams had found something unexpected. Another hidden base, built by someone else. "They're called Rimalan," her chief scout reported. "Refugees from a world the Council relocated 50 years ago." Daeun studied the images on her screen. The Rimalan were small, furry creatures with large eyes and quick hands. Their hidden base was crude but functional, clearly built by people who had learned to survive with very little. "They've been hiding here for decades," the scout continued, "living off scraps, afraid to make contact with anyone." "And now they've seen us," Daeun said. "What's their reaction?" "Terror. They think we're Council spies." Dayun made a decision that would change everything. I'm going to talk to them. The meeting took place in neutral space between the two bases. Dayun came alone, carrying no weapons, with her hands visible at all times. The Rimalan representative was an elderly female named Kesh, who shook with fear as she approached. "Please," Kesh said in broken council standard. "We did nothing wrong. We only want to hide." "We're not council," Dayun replied gently. "We're humans. We're hiding too." The word humans meant nothing to Kesh at first. But when Dayun explained who they were and why they were hiding, something changed in the old alien's eyes. "You were rejected by the council?" Kesh asked. "Completely. They called us too dangerous to join their civilization." For the first time, Kesh smiled. "Good. Their civilization is built on bones." That meeting led to others. The Rimalan knew about other hidden groups, species that had been enslaved, relocated, or simply written off as obsolete by the council. Each group lived in fear, convinced they were alone in the galaxy. Humans changed that. Jae-hyun Bae had never expected to become a revolutionary leader. He had been a university professor before the rejection, teaching history and political science. Now he was something the galaxy had never seen before. A diplomat who represented the oppressed instead of the oppressors. His ship arrived at the secret meeting point in an abandoned system on the galaxy's edge. Representatives from 15 different species were already there, all of them fugitives from council justice. Some had been slaves who escaped. Others were survivors of conquered worlds. A few were simply species that had refused to submit to council rule. "Friends," Jae-hyun began, speaking in council standards so everyone could understand. "We are all here because the council has decided we don't matter. They were wrong." He activated a holographic display showing the true extent of human expansion. Secret bases, hidden shipyards, and communication networks spread across hundreds of systems. "Humans were rejected from the council 2 years ago," he continued. "We were told to stay in our system and behave. Instead, we've built this." The alien representative stared in amazement. The network was vast, sophisticated, and completely invisible to council detection. "You did this in 2 years?" asked a Nexari elder. "We did this because we had to," Jae-hyun replied. "And now we want to help you do the same." The humans didn't ask for submission or tribute. They offered partnership, technology sharing, and most importantly, protection. For species that had lived in fear for decades or centuries, it was an impossible dream come true. While Jae-hyun was building alliances, other humans were taking more direct action. Captain In-ha Kim commanded a squadron of ships that officially didn't exist, and her mission was to make the council's life difficult without letting them know who was responsible. Her latest target was a council supply convoy carrying medical supplies to a military base. The supplies themselves weren't important, but the convoy's route took it through the territory of 3 different allied species. It was a perfect opportunity to send a message. "Begin operation," In-ha ordered. Her ships were invisible to council sensors, moving like shadows through space. They didn't attack the convoy directly. Instead, they planted false signals that made it look like the Altarians were secretly moving ships through vegan territory without permission. The Vegans intercepted the convoy and demanded explanations. The Altarians, genuinely confused, insisted they had done nothing wrong. The argument escalated quickly, with both species accusing the other of treachery. By the time they figured out the signals were fake, the convoy was hours behind schedule and both species were furious with each other. The humans were long gone, leaving no trace of their involvement. Another successful mission, In-ha reported to her superiors. Council unity continues to deteriorate. These small operations were coordinated by Gyuri Park, who had built the most sophisticated intelligence network in galactic history. Her agents looked like traders, mechanics, servants, and refugees. They were everywhere, listening to everything, and reporting it all back to Earth. "The Council is starting to notice the problems," she reported during a secure briefing. "Supply, shortages, communication failures, unexplained incidents. But they're blaming each other instead of looking for outside interference." "How long before they figure it out?" asked her superior. "At their current rate of investigation? Maybe 5 years. They're too arrogant to consider that a primitive species could be responsible. The crown jewel of human expansion was Sun Woo Choi's masterpiece in the Void Nebula. What had started as a small mining base was now a massive shipyard capable of producing vessels that made Council technology look ancient. The shipyard was carved into asteroids and hidden within the nebula's radiation clouds. Thousands of humans worked there alongside their new alien allies, building ships that combined human innovation with the best knowledge from across the galaxy. Production report, Sun Woo requested from his chief engineer. We've completed 50 destroyers, 20 cruisers, and 5 dreadnoughts this month, came the reply, all equipped with stealth systems and quantum communication arrays. And our alien partners' contributions? The Rimulan have provided excellent computer systems. The Korthans are helping with weapons design. The Nexari have shared their navigation technology. Sun Woo smiled as he looked out at the construction bays. Each ship being built here was more advanced than anything the Council possessed. More importantly, they were being built by free people working together by choice, not slaves forced to obey. But the most important development was happening on Earth itself. In classrooms, laboratories, and training centers around the planet, a new generation of humans was growing up. They learned alien languages, studied Council weaknesses, and prepared for the day when humanity would emerge from the shadows. These young humans didn't remember the rejection as a tragedy. They saw it as the moment humanity had been freed from the chains of alien approval. They were not bitter or angry. They were focused and determined. In a training center in Brazil, instructor Myung Lee taught her students about alien psychology. The Council species think in terms of hierarchy, she explained. Everything is about who's above and who's below. They can't understand cooperation between equals. What's our advantage? Asked a student. We think in terms of networks, Myung replied. Every human, every ally, every friend we make is a connection in a web that grows stronger with each new link. They see a pyramid with themselves at the top. We see a web with no center and no weak points. As the third year of H, the Altarian High Fleet was the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. For 3,000 years, its golden ships had never known defeat. Their mere appearance in a system was enough to make entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. Today, the fleet's pride was Battle Group Omega, 12 massive dreadnoughts led by the flagship Divine Authority. Admiral Korthane commanded the group from his crystal throne, surrounded by tactical displays showing the empty space of the outer rim. "Sir, we're approaching the disturbance zone," reported his tactical officer. Analysis? Multiple reports of missing ships, disrupted communications, and unauthorized presence. The Council suspects pirate activity. Admiral Korthane laughed, a sound like breaking wind chimes. Pirates? In ships that can challenge Council vessels? Impossible. Scan for hidden bases. What the Admiral didn't know was that his fleet had been tracked since the moment it left Altarian space. Hidden sensors, no larger than pebbles, had been watching every Council patrol route for months. As soon as Battle Group Omega entered the Outer Rim, its exact position was transmitted to a human commander who had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. Admiral In-ha Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the tactical display. Around her, the bridge crew worked in perfect silence. Unlike the massive, ornate bridges of Council ships, this was a compact space designed for efficiency. Every surface was matte black to avoid reflections, and every system was built for one purpose: war. Enemy fleet detected, reported her sensor officer. 12 dreadnoughts, standard Altarian configuration. Stealth field status? All ships invisible to their sensors. We might as well be ghosts. In-ha smiled coldly. The Council had grown so used to their technological superiority that they had stopped innovating centuries ago. Their sensors could detect massive energy signatures and traditional drive systems, but human stealth technology worked on completely different principles. Begin the hunt, In-ha ordered. The human fleet moved through space like shadows. 30 ships, each one smaller than a single Council dreadnought, but infinitely more dangerous. They had been designed for this moment, when human technology would finally face the galaxy's masters in open combat. Admiral Korthane was reviewing patrol reports when his ship's alarms began screaming. "Report!" he demanded. "Rear guard is under attack. Ships 7 and 8 are not responding. On the tactical display, 2 of the golden dreadnoughts had simply vanished. No explosion, no debris field. They were just gone. Impossible. What attacked them? Unknown, sir. Sensors show nothing. Before the Admiral could respond, another alarm sounded. Ship 5 disappeared from the display, followed seconds later by Ship 12. Emergency maneuvers. All ships formed defensive formation. But the Altarian ships were too big, too slow. They had been built to intimidate and overwhelm weaker opponents, not to fight an enemy they couldn't see. As they tried to reposition, the human fleet struck again and again. Each attack lasted only seconds. Human ships would appear just long enough to fire their weapons, then vanish back into stealth. Their weapons were unlike anything the Council had faced. Not massive energy beams that could be detected and countered, but small, precise strikes that found weak points in ship armor and exploited them perfectly. "Sir, we've lost 8 ships," the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with panic. "How is this possible? What are we fighting?" "I don't know, sir. The attack signatures don't match any known technology." Admiral Corthane felt fear for the first time in his 3-century military career. His fleet, the pride of the Altarian Empire, was being destroyed by an enemy he couldn't even see. "Send a priority message to Nexus Prime," he ordered. "Tell them we are under attack by unknown forces using advanced stealth technology." "Sir, communications are being jammed." The Admiral's golden skin turned pale. Jamming was impossible in deep space unless the enemy had massive arrays of equipment. But there was nothing on sensors except empty void. All remaining ships, retreat immediately. The 4 surviving dreadnoughts tried to flee, but it was too late. The human fleet had positioned itself perfectly, cutting off every escape route. One by one, the Golden Giants fell silent, their crews captured rather than killed. Only Admiral Corthane's flagship remained. Inha Kim's ship decloaked directly in front of it, so close that the Altarian could see individual humans through the bridge windows. "This is Admiral Inha Kim of the Human Defense Force," came a transmission in perfect Altarian. "Surrender your ship, and you will be treated with honor." "Human?" Corthane stared at the small ship that had destroyed his fleet. "Impossible. Humans are primitives, confined to their own system." "Admiral," Inha's voice was calm and professional, "you have 10 seconds to surrender before we destroy your ship." Looking at his tactical display, seeing the wreckage of the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, Admiral Corthane made the only choice he could. "I surrender." The news of Battle Group Omega's destruction sent shockwaves through the Council. Emergency. Sessions were called, fleets were recalled to defend homeworlds, and for the first time in millennia, the 3 ruling species felt genuine fear. But the worst was yet to come. 3 days after the Altarian fleet's disappearance, a human battle group approached Kepler Station. The station was a Council peacekeeping base that monitored a dozen star systems and served as a symbol of Council power in the region. Captain Kyungmin Yang commanded the human force from the bridge of his cruiser. Unlike the stealth ships that had ambushed the Altarians, these vessels were clearly visible and proudly displayed human markings. "Open a channel to Kepler Station," Kyungmin ordered. The alien commander who answered looked confused and irritated. "This is Commander Veltar of Kepler Station. Identify yourself and state your purpose." "I am Captain Yang of the Human Republic Navy. You are ordered to cease all hostile activities against civilian populations in this sector." Veltar's expression shifted from confusion to amusement. "Human? I thought your species was confined to your home system. Return there immediately or face the consequences." "No," Kyungmin replied simply. The alien commander blinked, clearly not understanding the response. In 3,000 years of Council rule, no one had ever simply said no to their demands. "You will comply with Council authority or be destroyed," Veltar said, his voice rising in anger. "You are welcome to try." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. The Council had built Kepler Station to impress and intimidate. It was massive, heavily armed, and defended by a squadron of their best warships. Against any traditional enemy, it would have been impregnable, but humans didn't fight traditionally. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, their weapons striking with surgical precision. Council ships exploded not from overwhelming firepower, but from perfectly placed shots that caused cascade failures in their systems. The station's mighty guns, designed to destroy planets, couldn't track targets that moved too fast and changed direction too often. In 12 minutes, it was over. The station was crippled, its fleet destroyed, and its commander sitting in shocked silence as human marines boarded his command center. "This is impossible," Veltar whispered as Kyung-min walked onto his bridge. "Your ships are too small. Your weapons are too weak. Our ships are efficient," Kyung-min corrected. "Our weapons are precise, and most importantly, our crews actually want to be here." He gestured to the council personnel around the bridge. Aliens who served out of fear rather than loyalty, who followed orders because they had no choice. Your people fight because they have to. Mine fight because they choose to. The recordings of both battles spread through the human network within hours. But more importantly, they were also broadcast to every oppressed species in the galaxy through the hidden communication systems humans had built. On worlds where the Council's subjects had lived in fear for centuries, the impossible had happened. The Masters had been defeated. Their ships, their stations, their entire image of invincibility had been shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Dr. Sung-Ho Ryu worked in a laboratory that would have been the envy of any council. Scientist. Human technology had advanced by leaps and bounds since the rejection, driven by necessity and powered by imagination. His latest creation lay on the workbench before him, a weapon small enough to hold in one hand but powerful enough to destroy. A council dreadnought. "The quantum resonance field is stable," he reported to his assistant. "When fired at a council ship, it will cause their own power systems to turn against them." "And they have no defense against it?" "None. Their technology is so standardized that what works against one ship works against all of them. They've made themselves vulnerable by refusing to innovate." In her office on Earth, President Minji Jaeon reviewed the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The first direct confrontations had gone better than anyone had dared hope. Not only had human forces won decisively, but they had done so while capturing enemy personnel rather than slaughtering them. "The psychological impact is enormous," her intelligence chief reported. "Council morale is collapsing. Their subject species are beginning to believe that resistance is possible." Any response from the council leadership? "They're calling emergency sessions, but our sources suggest they're in complete chaos. They literally don't understand." The emergency meeting of the council's inner circle took place in the deepest vault of Nexus Prime, behind shields that could withstand the explosion of a star. For the first time in 3 millennia, the 3 ruling species were genuinely afraid. Hi. Chancellor Mordane's golden form flickered with agitation as he paced before the holographic displays showing the disaster spreading across their empire. 7 core systems in open rebellion, 43 garrison fleets destroyed or captured. Our slave populations are rising everywhere. The Vegan Supreme Arbiter's voice ground like stones. The humans are supplying them with weapons and training. Our intelligence networks are blind to their movements. Worse, added the Zephyrian Prime consciousness, its form shifting like smoke. Our own member species are questioning our authority. The Nexari Trade Union has stopped paying tribute. The Corvani Federation is reconsidering their loyalty oaths. Chancellor Mordane stopped pacing and fixed his burning gaze on his fellow rulers. Then we use the final protocol. The other 2 leaders went silent. The final protocol had been created as a last resort, a weapon so terrible that its mere existence had prevented rebellions for centuries. It was genocide made simple, a virus that could be programmed to target specific genetic patterns. "You want to exterminate entire species?" the Vegan asked. "Not exterminate. Control. We release the virus on rebel worlds, then offer the cure in exchange for absolute submission. They will beg to be slaves again. And the humans? First." Mordane's voice carried the certainty of absolute power. "We sterilize their home system completely. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy us." While the Council planned genocide, Yejin An coordinated the largest supply operation in galactic history. From her command center in the Void, Nebula, she managed the flow of weapons, ships, and supplies to rebel forces across 1,000 worlds. "Status report from the Rimalan front," her aide requested. "They've liberated 3 more mining colonies. The Vegans are pulling back to defend their core systems. Kortha sector? The warrior clans have reclaimed their entire home system. They're sending volunteer fighters to help liberate other worlds. Yejin smiled as she studied the galactic map. Red dots showed rebel-controlled systems, blue showed human bases, and green indicated allied species. 3 years ago, the map had been entirely gray, council territory, with no hope of change. Now, nearly a quarter of the galaxy burned with the fire of revolution. "Ma'am, priority message from Earth," her communications officer announced. The message was from human intelligence, and its contents made Yejin's blood run cold. Council communication intercepts revealed the final protocol, the plan to release biological weapons against civilian populations. "Get me Admiral Kim immediately," Yejin ordered. Halfway across the galaxy, Admiral Inha Kim received the warning while preparing for the largest battle of the war. Her fleet, now grown to over 300 ships, was approaching the Altarian home system. The plan was to strike at the heart of Council power while they were distracted by rebellions elsewhere. "Change of plans," she announced to her fleet commanders. "Council intelligence suggests they're preparing to use biological weapons against civilian targets." The silence on the communication channel was deafening. Every human military officer understood what that meant. The Council was planning to, commit genocide on a scale that would make their previous atrocities look small. "Admiral," one of her captains said finally, "if they're willing to use bioweapons, they'll start with Earth." "I know." Inha's voice was steady, but her hands clenched into fists. "That's why we're going to end this war before they get the chance." Earth, President Minji Jion received the same intelligence reports. The Council was preparing to deploy weapons that could kill every human being in existence. But instead of panic, she felt a cold determination settle over her. "Contact all our allies," she ordered. "Every species we've helped, every world we've liberated, every ship that flies under our protection. Tell them the truth about what the Council is planning. All of them, ma'am? All of them. And tell them we need their help." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been enslaved for centuries volunteered their entire fleets. Worlds that had just tasted freedom offered their resources. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species united not out of fear, but out of friendship. The Korthans sent their warrior fleets, ships crewed by fighters who had learned human tactics, and combined them with their own fierce traditions. The Rimolans contributed their technical expertise, making human ships even more efficient. The Nexari provided intelligence networks that spanned the galaxy. But the most important allies were the ones no one expected. Deep in Council space, 9 species that had been junior members for millennia received human messages revealing the truth about the final protocol. They learned that the 3 ruling species were planning to use bioweapons not just against rebels, but against anyone who might ever rebel in the future. The Corvani Federation was the first to act. Their ships, officially part of the Council fleet, suddenly turned their weapons on their Altarian escorts. In a single coordinated strike, they eliminated the Council commanders who had oppressed them for 2,000 years. "This is Admiral Tekvar of the Corvani Federal Navy," came the broadcast on all Council frequencies. "We renounce our allegiance to the Council and declare our independence. We stand with the Human Republic and all free peoples of the galaxy." Similar declarations followed from the Nexari, the Vorthak, and 6 other species. The Council's empire was collapsing from within, as their own allies revealed they had always been prisoners rather than partners. Master strategist Su-Yung Huang watched the defections from her command center on Luna Base. The psychological warfare campaign she had designed was working perfectly. By revealing the Council's true nature to their own subjects, humans had turned the enemy's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. "The Altarians are recalling all fleets to defend their home system," her intelligence officer reported. "The Vegans are doing the same." "And the Zephyrians?" "They're trying to maintain control of their frontier territories. They think they can wait out the rebellion." So-Young studied the tactical displays, seeing the pattern clearly. The 3 ruling species were making the same mistake that had always been their weakness. They were thinking like an empire instead of thinking like a network. "Send word to Colonel Park. It's time for Operation Starfall." Colonel Beomgyu Park had earned a reputation as the most daring rescue specialist in human history. His missions had freed hundreds of thousands of slaves from council camps, and his name was whispered with hope on oppressed worlds throughout the galaxy. Now he faced his greatest challenge, infiltrating Nexus Prime itself to rescue the most important prisoners in the galaxy. "The target is the Deep Vault," he briefed his team as their stealth ship approached the massive space station. "The Council has been holding representatives from every rebel species as insurance against their population's good behavior." His team was small but elite. Humans and aliens working together with perfect coordination. They had trained for this mission for months, studying every corridor and security system in the station. "Remember," Beomgyu continued, "these prisoners include the legitimate leaders of dozens of worlds. If we can free them, it will prove to the galaxy that the Council's power is broken." The infiltration was a masterpiece of precision and timing. Using human stealth technology and alien knowledge of the station's layout, they moved through Nexus Prime like ghosts. Council security forces, designed to detect massive invasions, never noticed the small team of liberators in their midst. The Deep Vault contained horrors that made even veteran soldiers pause. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy, held in stasis pods as living proof of the Council's power. Leaders, scientists, artists, and philosophers. Anyone who might inspire their people to dream of freedom. "Begin revival procedures," Beomgyu ordered as his team connected human medical equipment to the alien stasis systems. As the prisoners awakened, word of their rescue spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On world after world, populations that had been held back by fear for their leaders' safety rose up in coordinated rebellion. But the most important message came from an unexpected source. Technical specialist Wanho Shin had spent months infiltrating the Council's quantum communication network. His mission was espionage, but what he discovered was evidence of crimes that shocked even him. "I'm uploading everything to the Galactic Net," he reported to his commanders. "Every world they've destroyed, every species they've exterminated, every atrocity they've committed over 3,000 years. The data release was devastating. The Council's carefully maintained image as benevolent rulers was shattered in moments. Images of destroyed worlds, records of genocides, and evidence of systematic oppression flooded every communication network in the galaxy. Species that had remained neutral in the conflict saw the truth about their supposed protectors. The Council hadn't brought peace to the galaxy. They had brought terror, slavery, and death on an unimaginable scale. Public opinion across the galaxy has shifted completely, intelligence reported to President Minji Jion. Even species that feared to oppose, "The Council are now calling for justice." The three Council dreadnoughts approached Earth like harbingers of doom. Each ship was the size of a small city, covered in weapons that could crack continents. But these weapons were silent today. Instead, the ships carried something far more terrible: biological death in crystalline containers. Admiral Jung-Ho Cha stood on the bridge of the Human Republic flagship, watching the enemy approach. Around him, the largest fleet in galactic history waited for his orders. Ships from 40 different species floated in perfect formation, their crews united by a common purpose. "Sir, the enemy ships are maintaining course for Earth," his tactical officer reported. "Estimated time to weapons range, 12 minutes. Any response to our surrender demands?" "None, sir. They're not even acknowledging our transmissions." Jong-ho understood. The Council leadership had moved beyond reason, beyond diplomacy, beyond everything except the desperate need to prove their power one last time. They would rather destroy Earth than admit they had been wrong. "All ships, prepare for combat. Remember, our goal is to capture those vessels intact. Whatever they're carrying, we can't let it reach Earth." The battle began at maximum range, with weapons that could destroy planets trading fire across millions of kilometers. The Council ships were powerful, their shields nearly impenetrable, their weapons devastating. Under normal circumstances, they would have been unstoppable. But these were not normal circumstances. The Allied fleet didn't fight like a traditional navy. Human tactics had taught them to think like a pack of hunters rather than a rigid formation. Ships from dozens of species moved in perfect coordination, each one using their unique abilities to support the others. Korthan warriors provided raw courage and strength. Remoulin engineers kept the weapons functioning at impossible efficiency. Nexari navigators guided ships through space like they were swimming through water. And at the center of it all, human coordination bound them together into something greater than the sum of their parts. "First enemy ship's shields are down," reported the tactical officer. "Boarding teams, you're cleared for approach." What followed was the most complex military operation in galactic history. Instead of destroying the Council ships, the Allied forces captured them in carefully coordinated assaults. Each boarding team included members of species that had been oppressed by the Council, fighting to prevent the same fate from befalling others. The first ship fell in minutes, the second lasted barely longer, but the third ship, commanded by High Chancellor Mordain himself, fought with the desperation of the truly doomed. "Sir, the enemy commander is threatening to trigger the biological weapons manually," came the report from the boarding team. "Understood. Continue the assault." The final battle took place in the corridors of the Council ship itself. Chancellor Mordain, surrounded by his last loyal guards, made his final stand in the ship's laboratory where containers of death waited to be released. "You cannot stop us!" the golden alien declared as human marines surrounded him. "We are the Council! We have ruled for 3,000 years!" "Your time is over," replied Captain Yuan Li, who led the boarding team. "Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly." "Fair?" Mordain laughed bitterly. "You speak of fairness? We brought order to chaos, civilization to barbarians, and this is our reward?" "You brought slavery to free beings," Yewen corrected. "You brought death to worlds that wanted only to live in peace. That is not civilization." For a moment, the ancient alien ruler stood silent, seeing perhaps for the first time the true measure of his empire's crimes. Then he reached for the biological weapon release controls. He never made it. A single shot from Yuan's weapon dropped him, and the galaxy's longest tyranny ended not with grand speeches or epic proclamations, but with a tired old alien falling to the floor of his own ship. The victory was complete, but the work was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Earth to begin the most important task in galactic history, building something better than what had come before. The Constitutional Convention, as historians would later call it, brought together over 3,000 species in the largest political gathering ever attempted. They came from worlds that had been enemies for millennia, species that had never heard of each other, and peoples who had thought they were alone in the universe. President Yuan Li, elected by unanimous consent to lead the new government, stood before the assembled delegates in the great hall that had been built for this moment. "Friends," she began, speaking in the common language that was already emerging from the mixing of dozens of alien tongues. "We are here not to create an empire, but to ensure that no empire ever rises again." The debates were intense, passionate, and sometimes heated. How do you govern a galaxy of thinking beings who might have nothing in common except their desire to be free? How do you balance the needs of advanced civilizations with the rights of primitive worlds? How do you prevent the strong from dominating the weak? The answer came from an unexpected source: the humans' own experience with democracy combined with the wisdom of species who had suffered under tyranny for centuries. "We propose a federation," explained Chief Architect Changbin Seo, whose job was to design the new government structure. "Every world governs itself according to its own nature and culture. The galactic government exists only to prevent aggression and facilitate cooperation." "And who leads this federation?" asked a Nexari delegate. "Everyone. And no one. The system they created was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of rulers and subjects, there were representatives and citizens. Instead of tribute and taxation, there was voluntary cooperation. Instead of conquest and submission, there was trade and friendship. But the most revolutionary change was in how they treated technology and knowledge. For 3,000 years, the Council hoarded advanced technology to maintain their power, announced Director Unbi Cho, who oversaw the new Federation's science policies. "We will share everything freely. Every discovery, every innovation, every breakthrough will be available to all member worlds." The transformation was swift and dramatic. Worlds that had been kept primitive by Council policy suddenly had access to fusion power, quantum communication, and interstellar travel. Species that had been enslaved for centuries found themselves building their own ships and exploring the galaxy as equals. The former Council territories became the site of the largest reconstruction effort in galactic history. Slave worlds were rebuilt as free societies. Destroyed ecosystems were restored using the combined knowledge of hundreds of species. Oppressed populations learned that they could speak, think, and dream without fear. But perhaps the most important change was in how conflicts were resolved. When the Vorthak Federation claimed the same star system as the Corvani Republic, the old galaxy would have seen war. Instead, both species brought their dispute to the new galactic court, where judges from neutral worlds helped them find a solution that satisfied everyone. "We are not perfect," Judge Jonghan Yu explained to a group of young beings studying galactic law. "We still have disagreements, conflicts, and problems. The difference is that now we solve them with words instead of weapons." His classroom was a perfect symbol of the new galaxy. Young beings from dozens of species learning together, their differences celebrated rather than feared. The former council leaders faced justice, but not revenge. Trials were held across the galaxy, not to punish entire species, but to hold individuals accountable for their crimes. Many former council supporters found places in the new government, proving that redemption was possible for those willing to change. High Chancellor Mordain, himself, recovered from his injuries, spent his remaining years in quiet exile on a farming world, tending gardens with his own hands for the first time in his long life. Whether he found peace in that simple work, no one knew. But the galaxy found peace in knowing that even the worst tyrants could be defeated without becoming tyrants themselves. 5 years after the Constitutional Convention, President Yunbi Cho stood once again in the Great Hall, now addressing representatives from over 8,000 worlds. The Federation had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams, as species previously unknown to the galaxy emerged from hiding and joined the community of free worlds. "Today marks the 5th anniversary of our freedom," she said, her words carried to every inhabited world by the quantum communication network that now spanned the galaxy. "But more importantly, it marks the beginning of what we can become." She gestured to a holographic display showing the galaxy as it now existed. Trade routes connected distant worlds. Joint scientific projects unlocked the secrets of the universe. Art and culture flowed freely between species that had been isolated for millennia. "The old galaxy was built on fear," Yunbi continued. "Ours is built on hope." In the audience, many faces were familiar. Admiral Inha Kim, now retired, had become a teacher at the new Galactic Military Academy, where officers from all species learned that their highest duty was to protect the innocent. Dr. Sungho Ryu led the Federation's largest research project, working to unlock faster-than-light travel that would open new galaxies to exploration. And in the back of the hall, almost unnoticed, sat an elderly human man named Ji-hoon Park. He had been Earth's first ambassador to the Council, carrying humanity's